Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. This video is more of a documentary piece as I highlight some errors with dual extruders and Cura that I'm seeing, and my future videos will hopefully lead to some solutions. To begin, I created an experimental printer which I call MPrint E4. It has 4 extruders that can be mounted to the X carriage, and my goal here was to incorporate 4 materials in a single print. You know, nothing too crazy. I currently use Cura on my other printer and found I had to modify the G-code when it switches to a different material of filament because it has a single extruder. So my goal with E4 was not to have to modify the G-code because in logic it would have a separate extruder for all of the filaments. And boy, was I wrong. Cura, in its amazing logic, produced a mess of filament wires and parts so bad I couldn't even call it a 3D print. After continuing to print on this printer and internet researches, apparently Cura's base program for dual extruders is horrible. Just horrible. Cura keeps the hot ends on at all times. So if you use a prime tower to get the material ready on the next layer, it deposits material on your print because when it moves from the prime tower to the part, the nozzle is leaking filament. I've played around with the location of the prime tower and made it closer to the part, but you're still left with some deposits on the part. Another thing I ran into is bed leveling must be done for all nozzles separately, and the offsets must be defined for each nozzle. This led to layer shifting when the next filament was running as shown. As I promised, here is the traffic cone. A print so bad it contained everything wrong with the print, and it actually broke apart after I filmed it. The traffic cone was supposed to use one of Cura's dual extruder features called the ooze shield to prevent filament deposits, but it failed and strings of filament ran from the tower to the part. My nozzle offsets were also off and the layers shifted. But here's my biggest issue with Cura. Do you see the black line on the part? That is Cura loading the next material, the black filament, for the prime tower above the layer it just printed. Why would this ever be a good idea? No extrusion should take place above a layer that was just printed, especially if this filament isn't even needed on the part, but the prime tower. And why isn't the prime tower using the same color as the layer? Why is it switching to a different filament or color? Here are listed settings for dual extrusions under a title called Dual Extrusion. Here you can find the on and off switch for the prime tower, the size, location of the prime tower, and the volume. You can have it wipe running nozzles on the prime tower, which I've had enabled, but inactive nozzles still leak on my part. You can create a brim for the prime tower, which acts like a brim, similar to what it does for your part. The ooze shield is here. You can set this angle and the distance from the part. You can set retractions when done with the material, which I've noticed my nozzles are still leaking on the part when moving from the prime tower. You can also set speeds for retractions, but nowhere can you tell Cura where to load the next material. So Cura does this over your part and the layer you just printed and then moves to the prime tower. This is going to lead me to have to modify the G-code after Cura slices it. So Cura automatically sets the prime tower color for the layer it needs. Why wouldn't this section be orange, not black? If you don't believe me, take a look at the prime tower that Cura developed for the traffic cone. The prime tower should match the color horizontally on the traffic cone, but not on this print. Cura switches to orange, then back to black for the rest of the print. Black shouldn't be used anywhere above the base layer. The vertical layers are orange and white, but Cura is using black on the prime tower. Then my print actually failed, so that's why it's like this. As you can tell, this is a very frustrating print. that literally broke everything. There are a couple things I did learn about Cura and its settings, and also some things I can adjust on my printer. In part 2, I'll kind of go over the lessons learned from the traffic cone, and hopefully we can try again. Until the next video, I'll see you soon.